Boris Johnson says Trump only aims to shock Europe over claims that Ukraine started the war with Putin. I'm going to read into this piece from The Independent, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with an article from The Independent with the headline: Boris Johnson says Trump only aims to shock Europe over claims Ukraine started the war with Putin. The former Prime Minister said Trump's claims were designed to shock Europe into action. No, they were not, Boris. They were not. We know exactly where the US President stands, and I think most of you who are watching know exactly where the US President stands. He claimed that President Zelensky is a dictator. He's not a dictator. He was democratically elected as Ukrainian president. And the only reason that they haven't had elections is because they are in a war. This might shock some people, but during World War II, we did not have elections either. Why? Because we were at war, the UK. But we were still considered a democratic nation because, we had to prioritize a war, a war against those who were trying to destroy us. And it's the same concept here. And it appears here that Donald Trump, for me, has just thrown his toys out the pram here. And Boris Johnson, for me, the language that he's using, how he's trying to dumb this down in some way, shape or form. I just think, for me, more than any other, some of our politicians that we have in the UK, he's more tied to Russia than anyone. This guy, put in a former KGB agent into the House of Lords. I remember everyone was screaming and saying to Boris Johnson, "Don't put this man in. This is not a good idea. This is a terrible idea." Johnson insisted on it. He insisted on it. And when Russia annexed Crimea back in 2014, do you know what Boris Johnson was doing, the Foreign Secretary, while every other nation was reacting to this? He was in Italy, partying with with people associated with Russia, associated with the Russian government. So, for me, Boris Johnson is a Russian asset. I think that's pretty clear. And he's not going to crap all over Donald Trump. He's going to try and play it down as much as he wants. But Boris Johnson was so buoyant in his support for Ukraine when he was Prime Minister. Yes, he was. Do you know why he was? Because it made him look good. Because of his public image. It was to make him look good. He put on the face. He doesn't care about Ukraine. He's never cared about Ukraine. For him, it was all about, making himself look good. Whenever things went bad, he ran over to Ukraine for publicity. Because, to show, we stand with Zelensky. We stand with Ukraine. It wasn't about... actually, for him, yeah, they supported Ukraine. But it was about the PR, the publicity. That's what it was really about for him. He never really cared about Ukraine. And he had to toe a certain line anyway to keep people happy. And that's important to understand as well. Yes, eventually he went gone. But, he played the line. This man is not to be trusted. He really is not. So Boris Johnson has reacted to Donald Trump's claims that Ukraine started the war with Russia, as the president came under fire for branding Volodymyr Zelensky a dictator. The former Prime Minister said the US President's statements on Ukraine were the latest in a series of controversial interventions by the Trump administration that are not intended to be historically accurate, but to shock Europe into action. This is nonsense. Mr. Trump caused outrage when he wrongfully claimed Kyiv started the war, as well as claiming Ukraine's president approval rating stands at 4% and the country should hold an election. Roughly the polls, if you can literally Google it at the time I'm telling you this, roughly the polls were around about up to 55 to 60% approval for Zelensky. Now, many Ukrainians don't like Zelensky. That's fine, but it's not like there's a complete and ultra hatred for Zelensky. Excuse me. I do think there are some who think that that he is handling this wrong, but the majority, from most polls, are saying that they approve of Zelensky. He later doubled down on the attack, describing Mr Zelensky as a dictator, and warned that he better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Downing Street spokesperson said Sir Keir Starmer had called Mr Zelensky on Wednesday evening to express support to his opinion as Ukraine's democratically elected leader. The Prime Minister said it was perfectly reasonable to suspend elections during the war times, as the UK did during World War II. The Prime Minister reiterated his support for the US-led efforts to get a lasting peace in Ukraine, then deter Russia from future aggression, the spokesperson added. Tory leader Kemi Badenoch, not really care too much about what she says, but we'll hear what she has to say anyway. So Mr Trump was right that Europe needs to pull its weight, but also defended Mr Zelensky, who she said is a democratic elected leader of Ukraine who bravely stood up to Putin's illegal invasion. She wrote on X, formerly tweeted that the Conservatives would always stand with Ukraine, but she called on Sir Keir to do more. The shadow Conservative Defence Secretary James Callaghan pushed back against Mr Trump's comments, telling the Independent that Vladimir Putin is solely to blame for the invasion of Ukraine, and warning that he is the aggressive dictator waging a war of terrifying scale without provocation upon a free and sovereign democratic nation. It comes as European leaders are set to meet in Paris for the second time this week to thrash out response to the US President's stance. They've had that already for context, people. Excuse me. Responding to Mr Trump's comments made on Tuesday evening, Mr Johnson said, "Of course, Ukraine didn't start the war. You might as well have said that America attacked Japan at Pearl Harbor. Of course, a country undergoing a violent invasion should not be staging elections. There were no general elections in the UK from 1935 to 1945. Of course, these ratings are not 4%. They're actually about the same as Trump's." The former PM later added the US believes Belgium, France and other countries are blocking. It's absurd. We need to get serious and fast. He also asked when Europeans are going to stop being scandalised about Donald Trump and start helping him to end the war. The intervention of the former Prime Minister, who once a vocal supporter of Kyiv, comes after months of mysterious silence on the issue, in an apparent move to appease the President since he rendered the White House. In response, Mr Zelensky, who said Mr Trump is living in a disinformation space, warned that he would not sell his nation after Russia and the US started to broker peace talks without Ukraine. Yeah, I've said this already, guys, if you haven't already. It's outrageous that Ukraine are not being allowed around the table here. I don't care what your opinion is. Their country, their lands, their people, they have a right yet to be around that table. Washington and Moscow started talks earlier this week, led by US Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. Ukraine was not invited to the negotiation team Roha, Saudi Arabia, which concluded the ground rules for further diplomacy. And European countries also locked out of the talks. So Ben Wallace, who was Defense Secretary under Mr Johnson, accused the Trump administration of sharing genuine fake news about the war, as well as suggesting that the peace talks were a waste of time. He posted on the next, I think what President Trump is learning is that if you have no skin in the game, then you don't get to decide the fate of Ukraine. I'm sure they've enjoyed their 4 hours of talk today, but they probably shouldn't have wasted their time. London Mayor Sadiq Khan, who also took aim at US President, saying that it beggars belief that Mr Trump is rewarding the aggressor and blaming Ukraine for Russia's invasion. We have tens of thousands of Ukrainians who are refugees in our city because Putin's illegal invasion of Ukraine. What beggars belief is that for the president in the USA, apparently rewarding the aggressor, not just in terms of giving him the 20% of Ukraine that they currently occupy, but somehow blaming President Zelensky for what happened over the last 2 years. Yeah, you can't, it's absolute nonsense. Lib Dems say it's nonsense to suggest Ukraine started this war. Yep. Trump's efforts to rewrite history books. Yep, we know about that. These disorderly claims also a threat to UK as they undermine the rule of law and undercut European security. They prove more than ever that we need to have stronger bonds with European partners so that we can challenge Trump's damaging words from a position of strength, Lib Dems affairs spokesperson Camille Miller has said. Yeah, 100% agree. It just pushes us closer to Europe and further away from America. Hamsis de Breden Gordon, a former British Army colonel, urged European allies to step up support for Ukraine. Yep. I agree with Boris. Trump is talking nonsense and being hoodwinked by Putin. He said he'd end the war in 24 hours and live in some sort of fancy land. He doesn't seem to realise people are dying out there as he showboats. We need Europe to step up our support for Ukraine. And as we said, Sir Keir will fish at Washington next week. Yet we know about that. Well, Mr. Trump said he is all for the promise to put British troops in Ukraine. He said the US does not need to deploy peacekeeping troops as we're very far away. This might shock him, but there's actually US troops in other parts of the world that are further away than Ukraine. I don't know if he's aware of that. I don't know if he's aware of that. Do you think he's aware of that? Do you think he knows that we actually have US troops further away from America? I don't know how much of that he knows, but yeah, that might surprise him. Look, I don't have a problem with UK troops being there. I really don't. I know some people disagree with it. I understand why some people feel they disagree with it. I understand how people feel about us, the amount of money, the amount of weapons and supplies that we've given to Ukraine. I totally get that premise, and I know there's some people who hate that. But would you rather the war be in Ukraine, or would you rather have the war here on our doorstep? Is the question I'd say to you. Would you rather pay to have the war away from us or on our doorstep? I think that's a good question to put. As for Boris Johnson, remember, he is a Russian asset. He is not to be trusted. You know, we cannot trust that man. You cannot trust what comes out of him. He has lied on the numerous occasions. He lied before he was Prime Minister. He lied during he was Prime Minister. And he's been lying after he's Prime Minister. The man should be in jail for how he conducted himself during the COVID pandemic. Realistically. But he's not. I do think Europe are springing into action. Should they be moving faster on things? Yes, I do agree they should be moving faster on things. America cannot be trusted anymore. We cannot rely on them anymore. Europe must stand united. It couldn't be more the case. But we'll have to see over time how things pan out, because this is a conversation that's not going away and it's dominating the media right now. So what do you guys think? What do you guys make of Boris Johnson's comments? Do you think they were helpful? Do you think they were unhelpful? Do you think maybe he should shut up? Do you think he may have some context that maybe are worth listening to? Let me know your thoughts then more down in the comment section below. If you found this video helpful in any way, shape or form, hit the like button, share across social media, subscribe if you haven't subscribed already. Do check out the Patreon and Rumble pages down below as well. And if you want to financially support me, join the YouTube membership button just below for as little as 99p. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.